Titanic-related podcast dead ahead. James Cameron's pet project before the Avatar sequels dominated in the 90s, and now it's time for it to dominate that song from that movie. Ahoy! Welcome to the latest episode of That Song from That Movie, the podcast through which we look for the very best and worst of movie songs. It's a little weird at the moment though, because I'm all on my own. Usually I'm joined in here with Alex, and because of coronavirus we're all recording remotely.
We've been separated, forcefully removed from each other.
I'm my usual 300 miles away from you guys.
Okay, yeah, Ben's still the same. He's really going for that social distancing.
Making sure.
The second that news dropped that there was going to be a lockdown in the UK, Ben jumped in a car and drove all the way to Norfolk.
Bought a house, married a woman. I'm here for the long run.
Really embedding yourself.
So I probably should introduce us all. Now we're trying to get into the swing of things where I'm not looking at Alex.
I know it's difficult. It's difficult already, actually, not seeing your eyes as I talk to you. I like to see you, getting ready to laugh at whatever I'm about to say.
Yeah, I do have to mentally prepare for it. Okay, so I'm your host, and I'm definitely near. He's usually in the same room as me, but for the foreseeable future, you can cast him as far. It's Alex.
We Fasolati da do.
And over the waves in the internet, as usual, wherever he is, it's Ben.
I am here.
So today's episode is My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion from the mega hit Titanic.
Ooh, mega hit.
Well, it was mega hit by an iceberg, something like that.
Well, true.
So to tell us what happened when this song and movie came out, I throw it over to you, Ben.
Yes, so we will take you back to December 1997. So yes, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose and all that malarkey.
Ooh, it's Christmas.
Yes, I know. And then just, Christmas-themed movies were, glittering the screen, such as Spice World.
I mean, you can't get more Christmassy than that.
And Tomorrow Never Dies.
Again, likewise.
Oh, so a couple of other disaster films as well coming out that month.
Yeah, Spice World, a different kind of disaster, though. Yes, so Spice Girls were doing very well at this time. They were battling at the top of the charts. Do you have any idea who they were battling for? I'll give you a clue. They were a four-piece going for Christmas number one.
Is it the Wombles?
It wasn't the Wombles.
Four-piece in...
What year were we, sorry? 97?
97.
1997.
97, a four-piece. I was thinking maybe Bob the Builder, but I think that's later, isn't it?
But you're on the right lines. It was...
Teletubbies.
Teletubbies.
Yeah, Teletubbies
Cool.
Say Eh-Oh, which was number one at the start of December, and then the Spice Girls, I think, took it over. I think it was two become one, but I might be wrong there. But yes, they were battling it out.
It's battle for the ages, truly.
It was, wasn't it? And we've clearly remembered them both very well. They have equal standing within the music world.
It's like Oasis versus Blur. Yeah.
They are often compared.
Well, the Spice Girls and the Teletubbies both have the sort of one of them is this, one of them is this in the group. So they're very similar, really.
True.
Yeah.
Who copied who? That's the real question.
I think we know the answer to that.
I don't.
Simon Fuller knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
He's the only one who truly knows.
In other news at the time, Seinfeld announced it was finally coming to an end in the States. Didn't really take off over here, I feel, compared to the sort of the reputation it had in America. I don't even think I've ever watched more than an episode.
I've never watched any of it.
But it was always huge in the States. And yeah, I never had any interest in it whatsoever.
The only kind of connection I have with it is in that Simpsons episode where they plan and they propose changing the name from Springfield to Seinfeld.
Oh, on the Simpsons, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, then that's all I know.
Yeah, that is literally all I know about it.
Yeah, MSN Hotmail announced after Microsoft bought out the service for $400 million, so we finally got MSN.com and launched basically MSN, which was a staple of my teen life.
Same. And all of us.
Yep, all my names. Remember the old Enter She Carol, My Chemical Romance, and various things like this.
Yeah. Making sure that the specific song was playing on your Windows Media Player, so it showed up.
Always, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you had to make sure it was nicely formatted so it didn't look like you downloaded it off LimeWire.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not that I would ever do that.
No, of course not. No one did that.
I use BearShare.
Oh, the panic when My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion would come on and think of all the people judging me.
Judging you positively, sure.
Well, potentially. Doubt it. But yes, it was also in a very Leeds-centric. It was the month in which the Leeds legend and Scottish legend Billy Bremner died, aged 54.
R.I.P.
Just at a very young age. I know, R.I.P. And also in a bit more film-related news, because he would have been 100 this week, and I've seen a few movie collections doing tributes to him. You might not have been aware of him. He's a sort of a Japanese samurai legend. His name was Toshiro Mifune. He was in films like Seven Samurai, Rashomon, all things like this. He was basically the samurai in sort of the 50s and 60s films.
Wasn't he the inspiration for Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yes, he was, yeah.
Did he just ruin that for you then, man? Was that going to be an X Factor?
No, it wasn't, actually. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It's just, he is amazing, though, and you watch him, he exuded sort of charisma. And they're doing like a lot of tributes to him at the moment. Because, yeah, he was born 1st of April 1920, so he would have been 100 this year. You know, he's an absolutely fantastic actor. That was December 1997, and it was also very famous because the film Titanic came out. I always wonder, for those unaware, and I don't know how many people that is these days, James Cameron's epic historical adventure Titanic follows the tale of 17-year-old Rose, played by Kate Winslet, who I have no idea how old she was at the time.
She's 17 in this film.
She's supposed to be, yes.
I did not know that. It's like the opposite of Keira Knightley in Love Actually.
What's that?
It's like the opposite, where Keira Knightley, the actress, was very young, but played someone older.
Okay, yes. Right, yes.
I think Kate Winslet was relatively young at this point. I don't think she was 17, obviously, but I think she was maybe early 20s. I think she was quite young. I think she's older than Leonardo DiCaprio, though.
Well, I think Leonardo DiCaprio was like in his mid-20s at this point.
Oh, was he? Oh, maybe
yeah, I think so.
I think they are. I think she was still. Maybe she was younger then. Who knows? Maybe we should find out.
Well, she's intending to marry the definitely older Billy Zane, and the two aristocratic families coming together. However, obviously, when she boards the famous Titanic for its maiden voyage, she meets the artist Jack Dawson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and the two fall in love. But it doesn't last very long. Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. God.
So yes, Titanic. What do people think of the film?
I actually quite like the film now. However, as a child, this film was a stinky girls' film for girls.
Yep, well put.
And 7-year-old me was like, if I go see this film, even like with my grandma or something, I'm going to get cooties.
You gotta keep away those cooties.
Exactly. But I actually have watched it back since, and I do like the film.
When was the last time you watched it?
Probably about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so recent.
It was on ITV in a Sunday afternoon, and I just stuck it on, and I was sort of engrossed by it.
God, with ITV adverts, that must have been about 5 hours.
Yeah, it was quite long.
Alex, what about you?
Which question? My opinion of the film, or when I last saw it?
Yeah, well, what do you think of the film?
I think it's good. I think it's. We watched in the last couple of years. We watched all the Best Picture winners of obviously which Titanic has won, and probably I would definitely put it at least in the top 10. I think it's genuinely like one of the funnest films to watch ever because it's just so much going on, so much mad stuff.
Yeah.
But we watched. So yeah, I watched it when like a year ago, maybe
okay,
a year and a half. So relatively recently, we watched it. The one thing, I mean, we might go into this, but I think the one thing that I really didn't remember until I watched it more recently is the weird framing device of the guy looking for the Titanic. I'd completely forgotten that happened, and I think at the beginning it goes on for like half an hour or something. It's like the first.
Yes, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the film never seems like it's in a rush at all. You know, even when the sort of chaos starts, that feels like, gosh, you know, even when you've seen it before, you're like, there's another hour 20 minutes of just pure chaos and carnage, basically. I thought I didn't like this film, and I rewatched it last week, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. You know, all elements of it, even like the romantic elements, which I thought, you know, cooties stay away when I was younger. I thought it was really good, and yet I think it does definitely go up a notch when it hits the iceberg, and just the production value and everything about it is just so impressive. Just a technical marvel as well as a good film and a sort of a good story. I just can't believe like how they made it.
I think, like you said as well, Ben, like about them taking the time with the story, that really makes that sort of end set piece, like half an hour, 40 minutes, all the more impactful, doesn't it? Because it's just they don't even rush that part. It's dragged out so slowly, every single bit. It's just great, yeah.
Oh yeah, and yeah, it's dragged out.
I once watched a video on YouTube. It was like behind the scenes on how they created all the, disaster bit going forward. And
Okay.
some of the practical sets they created for this film are absolutely insane. Like the actual ship, they created like a 50-foot scale version of it and actually smashed it. It was just insane.
And I think that's why it was so massively over budget. It was hugely late. There was a lot of panicking producers and executives behind this film, thinking we're just going to lose money here. Nobody expected it to be the film it came to be. And yes, it was, as people probably are aware, it was the highest grossing movie of all time, and it held that record for 12 years until James Cameron broke it himself with Avatar.
Never bet against James Cameron.
Never bet against James Cameron. That's what I keep saying about Avatar too.
Oh my god.
Because, I mean, eventually it will come out.
True.
But yeah, I think there was... Go on, Alex, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's sad that Avatar beat it. Because there's a definite gulf in the quality of those two films.
Oh, see, I like Avatar.
Well, you're on your own there, Ben.
I don't think I am, but yeah, I understand. I might be on my own in this sort of trifecta.
In this conversation, you are, yeah. Well, I assume. D, come on, draw your line now.
Titanic over Avatar.
Okay, that's fine. We'll just end the podcast there, and... Play us out, D.
The podcast will not go on.
Yeah, I mean, it held that record for 12 years. It has the joint most number of Oscar wins with 11. Do you know what the other two are?
Yes.
Ben-Hur and Return of the King.
Return of the King.
Do you know the third? I knew that one, but did you know it's also joint highest number of nominations? Do you know what that's with? I didn't know this.
I don't know. Is it something that didn't win that many?
Well, it's a film. I mean, it's quite an old film. It's from the 50s.
Wings.
No, Wings. No, I think it's 50s. To be fair, I'm guessing it's All About Eve.
All About Eve.
Yep, it is All About Eve.
Good shout.
Got it.
It did win Best Picture.
It did win Best Picture.
Yeah.
Oh, because you saw it in your list of. Did you watch it?
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it just absolutely floored everyone, and people didn't expect, because James Cameron's films before this were sort of heavy on the action. You know, we're talking Terminator, we're talking Aliens,
True Lies.
we're talking, what was it, True Lies? Yeah, just literally before this. A sort of a very heavy sort of historical romantic epic does not sound like it's up his street, and that's a gamble to put the amount of money. I think it cost 200 million. And I think by comparison, Avatar cost 275, like another 10 years later. That's a lot of money.
It's probably the difference in sets, isn't it? Like, yes. Avatar, like, what sets does it have? It's all CGI, more or less. Yes. Whereas, like Dee said, like, the amount of construction and stuff that went into Titanic is probably gigantic. But yeah, still, like you said, a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money. And obviously one of those Oscar wins was Best Original Song. And the song, My Heart Will Go On, as famously performed by Celine Dion rocking out the sweeping pop ballad, is obviously the main theme for Titanic. Music was composed by the late James Horner, who I didn't realise had died.
I didn't know he'd died either.
Yeah, I think he died in a is it a skiing accident or something? It was an untimely death. Just when I was reading about this, I didn't realise. And yeah, and the lyrics were by a man called Will Jennings, who I'd never heard of, but apparently he wrote Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven, which I really didn't know.
What, as in wrote the lyrics for it, or co-wrote with Eric Clapton?
He co-wrote with Eric Clapton. Yeah, wrote Tears in Heaven, which is a pretty good, equal claim to fame. And originally, neither James Cameron nor Celine Dion were sold on the song initially. Looking back on it now, it seems to be a cornerstone for the film's popularity, I'd say. And, at the time, swept the charts. I think it was number one in 20 countries altogether. She got 4 Grammys just from the song, as well as her Oscar win. And yeah, it's, really, really was absolutely huge, astronomically huge at the time. So yeah, similar to before. What's your opinion of the actual song?
So, continuing the theme, when this song came out, it was a stinky girl song for girls from that stinky girls film for girls. So I hated this song as a kid. I would watch Top of the Pops each week, and when it got to number 1, and it was this song, I would quickly jump for the remote and turn it to, I think Emmerdale was probably on at the same time. That was, to a 7-year-old me, Emmerdale was better than listening to this song. But I'm older, and I like the song now. It really goes for it, and I like that.
It really does go for it.
Do you think it's better than Emmerdale?
The theme song or the full show? Because I've not seen every single episode of Emmerdale, so I can't quite compare.
Let's say the theme. I mean, the Emmerdale theme is pretty good.
It is pretty good.
How did you predict my next question, Alex?
I just knew, Ben. I could sense it. I could sense that's where the conversation was going.
So yeah, it's kind of it works for you. Alex, what about you?
Well, this song just really reminds me of my mum and dad's caravan club, because it would be the closing song of the evening on Saturdays, pretty much for like 5-6 years after the film came out.
I remember that caravan club well.
Yeah, so that's my direct connection to it. But I mean, it's just a classic, isn't it? I think as well, it gives you the chills, it gives you the goosebumps every time.
Oh yes.
I think so.
Have you seen the video any time recently?
I feel like the video is just clips from the film, is it not?
Mostly, yes, and just her with the sort of the wind machine going and heavy lighting on the front. But at the sort of the drop, the breakdown where it's like a drum beat and then she goes into that huge sort of bellowing yaw. Like there's this sort of like quarter head turn that she does to the camera and bloody hell, it like knocks. It's just go on, love. She's giving it all her welly.
Key change moment.
Oh yes, yeah. She's giving it the lungs are on show.
The lungs are on show.
Yeah. So do you think there's two? Because we're talking 23 years now. Would you say the two are still coupled in memory?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can separate the two of them. I mean, I was going to say, where does the song with lyrics, does that even feature in the film? I know the music is the same, isn't it? Still very similar.
Yeah, like the motifs throughout the film, but I don't think the actual song is until the credits, I don't think.
No, James Horner wrote the song, as in like the instrumental, and apparently the story is he waited for James Cameron to be in a very good mood before presenting, because James Cameron just didn't want a pop song in it at all. He thought it would lower the tone of the film, it involved in any circumstance whatsoever. So James Horner waited for a good time to show him it. Quite liked it. Had to convince Celine. But yeah, the James Horner version, just the instrumental, plays basically when Jack and Rose are together. So when they're kind of like, it's like star-crossed lovers. When they look in each other's eyes, it starts playing the sort of the opening music. It's not the Celine Dion version. It's just the first song in the credits.
It really makes you wait for it, seeing as you're about 5 hours deep into the film at that point.
Yeah. You really have done. Because apparently James Cameron is not an easy man to please, from what is said about him anyway. Seems like he's a man who knows what he likes, and if he didn't like the song, he wouldn't have just said it. But I do wonder slightly, if you're behind budget, if you're over budget and you're behind schedule, are you a bit more sort of... Because apparently the executives wanted a song because they thought it would help market the film. I don't know if Celine Dion was a household name at the time, but I know she was around. Whether they thought, that'll help us drive a bit of revenue, set out to release an album with like a hit song on it.
Mm. I mean, do we think that the song did that, or do you think that the film was big anyway and it was mutually beneficial?
It's difficult. What do you think, Dee?
I think the song made the film bigger.
You do. Was the song released first? Or were they literally the same time?
So, I think it was released just earlier within the month.
Yeah. So it kind of was like giving you like a little taste of the film.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because I remember the song almost better than the film, as in like at the of the time. Like I remember the song being on every music channel, like you said, on Top of the Pops all the time. So I suppose it was like rammed in your face a lot more than the film maybe was. So maybe it did do that. Maybe it did help market the film.
Oh yeah.
Get people to see it.
I feel it was bursting out of every car radio. Like you do say, it's on Top of the Pops. It was just always on, and it's basically a 3.5 minute reminder of the song.
Yeah, and the video is essentially a trailer.
Yeah, long trailer.
Yes, yeah, it is. But even the video as well, and watch it, the breakdown, it times it to when it hits the iceberg. It's perfect.
Of course it does.
It's just absolutely, the drum beat is just with a crack when the boat hits. It's absolutely perfect. Clearly my estimations in both of the song and the film have gone up in the past week, because, I think before then, I would have said I didn't think the film had aged that well. But, I don't know if it's because... And I often think of the length. I think that's what I always think about.
And what about the special effects as well? Was that on your mind as well? Do you think maybe they wouldn't have held up as much?
Yeah, no, maybe a bit janky now.
Well, I did think it, but it was I think I was so amazed because, Dietrich had already pointed out, there's so much actual practical effects, and so it just still feels real. I think there's one or two shots where at the end when it's going through the wreckage, the hallways are lighting up as if it was still 1912. That's kind of like special effects, but it still works. And I think because the music that and it's that backing, that James Horner track, the Celine Dion song, it just works. It kind of I don't know. I don't know if it's nostalgia or something, but it does catch the heartstrings, and I think it just works perfectly. It works really well. Yeah, so I was reading an article recently, but it was saying that its reputation, My Heart Will Go On, they're saying it's the second most iconic power ballad of all time, behind Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You.
Ooh, I was going to say Total Eclipse of the Heart.
I was going to say Can't Find the Moon Line.
Yeah, I know, this is the thing. I think there's a lot of preferences, but nice. I think they were saying, like, iconic, as in, you know, reputation, standing, legacy. I see the comparisons with Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You.
Yeah, but Whitney Houston's was a cover though, wasn't it, of Dolly Parton's?
Yes.
So I feel automatically it should be reduced down the list. Put Celine at the top.
I don't know if there was a list. This was just a comparison between the two.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it got me thinking about that sort of legacy of both the film and the song, and whether it still has lasted. You said, like Alex, it was at the caravan park for about 6 years, but something obviously knocked it off the perch.
Well, actually, it could still be there now. I think that's just when I left. I left the caravan site before the song did.
Before Celine Dion became irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, yeah. Go on.
I was going to say the other one was Cher, I believe, but I don't know if that was ever like the last song of the night. But that was another one that probably maybe came after it.
I always think with the interesting thing with the Whitney Houston comparison, because I Will Always Love You, the film, as in The Bodyguard, has not done well in like the test of time. Does that, like, as in that song? Because that song is often considered, like, you know, it's the one that I always think of on like the X Factor when someone says they're going to sing it, and you just hear all these ooh, big song, as if like there's like that's the marker of like a legacy of music to compare yourself to. And I've never really thought of My Heart Will Go On in that league.
I think there's like an element of cheese about it, isn't there?
Yes.
People have it in a different category to Whitney Houston. I don't know if that's because it's Celine Dion and not Whitney Houston, and there's maybe a difference there. But yeah, I think it's sort of considered much more of a cheesy song. So that could be something to do with it.
Definitely with the music video as well. With the windswept, there's like the heavy light on her. Like I think she's on the ship in one or two scenes as well. It's cheese is probably the first emotion or like feeling you do think you're almost laughing at the video until like the breakdown comes, and then I'm getting flustered.
I think it's almost like the cheese factor is too far one way. With, say, a Bon Jovi song, it almost feels like you're in on it. Like,
yep.
It's cheesiness. Well, it is still quite sincere.
Yes.
But it's still cheesy. So it sort of isn't as fun, almost.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's a good point. I think that's probably to do with the serious nature of the film, isn't it? Because the film is like quite a serious topic and a true topic as well, like true event.
Genuine disaster.
A genuine disaster. So kind of like the fact that sort of gives it like a serious edge to the song. And like you say, they don't maybe view it as a sort of like you would Bon Jovi, like cheesy in that regard. So I think maybe that's the difference.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I could never imagine going to like a karaoke bar and choosing My Heart Will Go On.
Not anymore.
It's not gonna no. Well, first of all, I couldn't reach those notes, but yeah, I just think it's too cheesy. And to be fair, that was going to be my next point, because I was reading an article, I think it was in Vulture, the American magazine, and they were saying that the song has just not stood the test of time. It's just fallen to the wayside. But they were saying that same thing for the film as well, and they were saying that they're both seen as in like that old romantic epic doesn't exist anymore, and that a lot of sort of romance films are now very nuanced and very small.
Yeah, or like rom-coms, I suppose, as well, or like intelligent rom-coms, that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. And that the old sort of, like Pearl Harbor, and it's this sort of like a romantic love story with the backdrop of like a terrible disaster. These sort of films of the time.
Yeah, I suppose it is. I mean, the 90s especially, there was a lot of films like this, like English Patient is another perfect example of like a Best Picture winning film. And like I think if you look in the 90s at, say as an example, the Best Picture winners, the vast majority of them are like quite epic in scale. And then as soon as it got into the noughties, you kind of see a reduction in that, and it becomes a lot more like grittier, a lot more individual stories, or the struggle of the individual rather than this grand event that includes a large amount of people, and then pick a story within that to tell the story. So maybe it's just a change in culture generally, but I think it still holds a place now. I think when, like we said, we all watched it in the last 5 years, and we all enjoyed it on the same scale. And actually, I think the fact that it is a bit ridiculous and it is a bit over the top and it is grand, they don't make films like that anymore, and so that's kind of why it's good. That's why it still resonates.
Yeah.
The fact that, was it Vulture, you said? The magazine.
Yes, I think it was.
Like, they may be referring to it as like a romance, like a grand romance. I think in a lot of ways that's maybe like a simplification of the story, because I think I don't know whether it is specifically a romance in my opinion, and I think the song echoes that as well. It's more of a story about Rose's journey to separate herself from the shackles that have been put on her by the society that she lives in, and Jack's sort of he's that gateway to escape that world. So it's kind of there is a bit of a romance there, but they only know each other for how long? Like a week, maybe.
Well, yeah. Well, I think that's where the comparison comes, because it's that windswept.
Yeah.
Just falling in love at first sight. It's that element of it, isn't it? It's that.
Yeah. I do genuinely think the story is more about what comes after that. That was the moment in Rose's life where she could be free all of a sudden. And I think at the end, when you see like pictures of her in the time after the Titanic, but before, there's like loads of pictures of her having like a good time, of like going on explorations, discovering the world, and it's almost like that sort of brief romance with Jack was the opening to that world. It's a romance, but it's also. It's more like a journey of not self-discovery, but self-liberation, I suppose.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what sometimes maybe gets missed. And I think in the song as well, like there's like a line that's like, "You're here, there's nothing I fear," which we all know is in the song. It's sort of like she's carrying the idea of what he enabled her to achieve with her rather than the romance. And I think that's maybe something, that's kind of a slightly different interpretation of it.
No, yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think when they were writing it, James Horner and Will Jennings, they said they wanted to write it almost as from the point of Rose. They didn't write it with specifically that relationship in mind, but just as in a general sort of like someone looking back at like a lover, as in her older state, sort of reflecting on the romance that she had, and that sort of "you're here" of like the keeping that sort of the spirit with them, and that sort of staying with them through it, even though they've passed. And I think that, I guess that's in the same way, that's what the film's about, isn't it? It's that what he's passed on to her, that belief of, living life to its fullest, doing what she wanted rather than being shackled by her sort of aristocratic marriage ties.
Yeah. And it's almost like the incident of the Titanic, which happens between like the old world and the new world. And like Rose, even though she's American in the film, she represents that old America, or that's influenced by the British. But then when she arrives in America, she has a new identity. She's completely on her own. It's more of that sort of like immigrant side of America and doing everything for yourself. It's almost like Titanic is marking that. They tried to mark that point of when America changed from the old world to the new world through the character of Rose.
Yeah. Shouldn't have thrown away the heart of the ocean, though.
No, it reminds me of Bruce Almighty. When he's like, why did you throw the heart of the ocean over the boat at the end of Titanic?
It's symbolism. Yeah. The heart is symbolism.
It is. Well, I miss that.
I suppose. But Celine Dion performed with it while she was wearing it. So obviously Celine Dion, she obviously jumped in the ocean, went all the way down, got it, came back up, and that's her little relic. So I think she's ruined that, Dee.
Perhaps that chef that survived the actual Titanic disaster found it on his way back and gave it to Celine Dion when he heard the song.
I mean, I don't know if this is covered in Titanic 2, the sci-fi original.
It isn't. I've seen it. It's not.
It's a shame. There's no heart of the ocean. There's no more.
What was the tagline to Titanic 2? It was something like...
looks like history is repeating itself. Brilliant.
Amazing.
Celine Dion was not brought back for the sequel.
It's much more of a disaster film. The second one. There's nothing else going on.
Yes, it's like a Poseidon adventure.
It's like the Poseidon adventure, but much worse.
So, do you think the cheesiness of this song affected people's opinion on Leonardo DiCaprio? Because at the time, he was just some rubbish actor who was a teen heartthrob, and now is essentially considered one of the best actors of all time, and hardly anyone will disagree with you. Do you think it was tarred with the same brush?
I'm trying to think what came out before. I know
he was in. What is it? Eating Gilbert Grape? What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
What's Eating Gilbert Grape? But he was very young there.
Right. So there wasn't.
He is very good in that. No, I don't think he was in much a lot until this. I think this was a big break, and he was the heartthrob. But yeah, I think just after this, he had a string of like really big films and working with big directors. I think he was in Catch Me If You Can in like 2000. He was in The Beach, which did very well. So yeah, this definitely launched him, and I think still he is seen as like an extremely attractive man in the film. But just in character as well, he's free-spirited, can draw a very good naked lady.
Is that why you actually like the film, Ben?
His artistic qualities or the naked ladies?
A bit of both, really.
I like that. I like everything in the film.
Just leave it at that. Do you think the film would have benefited from more Billy Zane?
Everything can benefit from more Billy Zane. He's great in it.
He's a cool guy.
He knows how to flip a table and scare someone.
He is great. He's just great generally in it.
And just the name, Billy Zane. It can't be his real name.
It's a superstar name.
Can't be his real name.
I mean, why did this film kind of launch a career for Leonardo and Kate Winslet, but not Billy Zane? Like, he wasn't in much after this, was he? I know he's older, but he wasn't in much before this or after.
Could just be the classic typecasted bad guy. When you do a performance so well that you struggle for roles, like the guy from Dirty Harry. And you can say who's that exactly. That's the best response to that point, because no one remembers the bad guy from Dirty Harry because he was too good, and that was his career.
I thought you were going to say and the ugly.
Yeah, no, he was really ugly.
So we did mention it earlier, but do you think the movie Titanic still has significance in the year 2020, or even the song itself?
Yes. I personally think so. I think we discussed, didn't we, whether or not the two if they coexist, or whether there's one that stands aside from the other. But I think the two do really go as a unit.
Yep.
But I would say that the song still has significance today. Yeah, I would say so. I think just listening to it, and it gives you that sort of like goosebumpy feeling. But it does remind you of the film as well, which I think is a good song from film. Yeah,
it is intrinsically linked to the film, isn't it? What about you, Ben?
Yeah, exactly the same. I just think you can't think of one without the other, and I'd say it's a very good song and a very good film.
Okay, well, I guess that leads us very nicely onto whether or not the song or the film is better, with the section which still doesn't have a jingle, movie or song.
Ta-da.
Alex, you can go first again.
Thanks for the pressure. I would say film, because you still get the music, and I think it's the music, almost the music more than anything, that gets me.
Yes,
that sort of like that little like musical cadence. That's what I live for. So I'm gonna say film.
It's your sustenance.
So that was to the movie, right?
Yeah, film.
Right, cool. 1-0 to the film. Ben?
Yeah, if before last week I would have said song, but after watching it again, definitely the film.
Yeah, I've got to agree. So it's a clean sweep for the film.
Huzzah! Well done.
I think is that one of the first times we've had that. Usually the song wins.
I honestly can't remember.
Yeah, I think there has been a couple where the film's won.
Viewers, you can tell us.
You keep a score.
Probably should be keeping track of this. Yeah, have a little spreadsheet with. Maybe at the end of the year we can have like a face-off between them, like a March Madness type thing.
Yep.
Yeah, film or song. I actually think it's quite evenly split at the moment.
I have memories of songs winning, so it's justifying this segment on the podcast, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, so that will bring us to the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us today. Why don't you let us know what you prefer, the movie or the song? Or is it maybe a bit of a wash? Are they both about the same?
Does it matter?
It does matter. On the podcast, it doesn't exist. So follow us on Twitter at TFFM pod. There you go, got that right this time. Even though I've written it down wrong in my notes. I started reading it out and was like, that film? No, that's not right. That From song. That's what I've written.
That From song from movie.
That From song, yeah, that famous podcast.
Yep. It's goodbye from Alex.
Real men make their own luck. Billy Zane.
1997.
Real men make their own luck. Billy Zane. Michael Scott.
Yeah. It's actually Dwight, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's the Wayne Gretzky thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, yeah. But Dwight says it in The Office.
And it's goodbye from Ben.
There was not enough room on that piece of wood, and I'll fight anyone that says there is.
Oh no, they definitely. Well, there was enough room, but he wouldn't have floated.
Wouldn't have floated. I hate that argument.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mythbusters might have done it and came to that conclusion.
Good people.
Good, honest people at Mythbusters.
Got my vote.
Yeah, because it was already half sinking anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he literally tries to get on, and it almost pulls her off. Stupid argument.
He did the right thing, because if they'd have taken it in turns, they'd have both died.
Correct. So, goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Toodles.
Toodaloo.
Do you want to open it?
Alexa, stop.
Is that Siri?
It was, yeah, she just decided she wanted me to start a film quiz. So, she's trying to get involved in the podcast, fourth member.